All right, so we've been going back to exchange, engage, experience the past couple weeks. And we were kind of diving into what does this look like for us. But one of the biggest realizations that come whenever you talk about the idea of exchanging the old to engage in what God has for you, to experience the supernatural, to experience the big things that the Lord has. And when you look at that, what you realize is that it's a constant circle. It doesn't end. Because here's the reality of it. When you exchange your old thoughts, when you exchange your old ways, and God gives you something new to engage in, and all of a sudden you experience Him in a greater way, you know what that sends you back to? Now you have to exchange those ways that you had when you were experiencing Him to engage in even deeper, meaningful relationship with Him. And it continually grows, continually matures. And man, I cannot wait to see how God is going to work in and throughout you, the church. Listen, when we planted this church a little over a year and a half ago, all right, we sat down for an entire year and we talked and we talked and we talked. What does this church look like? And we wrote down and we journaled and people came together and we said, okay, here's something that we see. Here's something else that we see that God's calling us to. One of the things that he called us to and spoke to multiple people in our group was that we were called to lead college students. And so immediately our thought was, okay, that's cool. Like our church is going to be this college church. How in the world can you have a college church in Tipp City, Ohio? There's no college here. And so we're trying to figure some things out with that. And you're going to hear in just a little bit how God has exchanged those viewpoints that we had. Because I told you last week, right? You can only see as far as what you've ever experienced in your life, all right? And so you can only see as far as that. So when we planted the church, what people had reference to was everything that they had seen done before. And so when you say, okay, let's do something different, what is it that we can do? All of a sudden, we're looking at everything else everybody else has already done. Because you can only see as far as what you can experience. You can only see as far as what the vision is that's in front of you. But the Lord has been refining some things here at Movement Church. And big things. And it's been exciting. But the tough part for a lot of us is that we've had to exchange our way of thinking. We had to exchange some different things. I don't want to get into it, but you might be familiar with this documentary that came out about Hillsong Church and some different things with that. And I'm not getting into that part, but what I'm going to get into for just a moment is the fact that when that documentary aired, all the people that were on the fence about the church, all the people that were on the fence about Christianity immediately jumped on it. And they were pointing out that churches are nothing but a bunch of social groups. And I'm reading post after post after post after post because I'm going to tell you something. A lot of people, they won't read those things because it makes them hurt. Like they're like, oh, I don't want to hear that. Well, I want to hear those things. I want to see those things. What are people bashing the church for? Because I want to be better. I want to do better. And if we're doing some of the things that the church is getting bashed for, the general church is getting bashed for, I want to make sure that we do better. And so I'm reading these different things and social groups. They only want money. They only want, and the list just keeps going on and on and on and on. And, and the people were talking about small groups that they had been a part of. And they're all about social status in these different groups. And you have to fit into this group if you want to go to this group. Or you have to make at least this much money to be able to fit into this group or to fit into this church. And it just went on and on and on. And then I realized Paul didn't plant churches to go out and have social groups. He didn't go plant churches so he had some people like-minded that he can go and hang out with. He planted churches so that he could reach the lost. He planted churches so he could reach the people that were hurting the most. And so I started looking at that and I said, man, I know God called us to have fam groups. That's like the core of what we are. But in the past couple months, we kind of phased off from those. We're not done with those. By no means are we done with those, but we kind of faded back for a moment so that we can relaunch into something even greater. Because I believe that if we are the church, we're not called to just come together and hang out and talk about last night's meal or something like that. We're called to make a difference. We're called to make a change. I told you this on Easter. If Jesus resurrected from the grave and he gives us the resurrection power to resurrect from our old lives to our new lives, then we need to be obedient to what it is that he's called us to. And he has called each and every one of us, regardless of gifts, he has called each and every one of us to reach the lost. We're all called to do it in a different way, which is I absolutely love. Not everybody in this room is called to stand on a stage and preach a message. Not everybody in this room is called to be out on a street corner preaching to people in the public that's just walking by. But we are all called to be a light in darkness. And so I'm going to invite up to the stage Pastor Doug and Bobbi and Kristen, because we have a special announcement that we would like to make today that is going to be a big thing for our church. Bobbi, if you want to sit here, I got you a microphone. And this is the mute button here. You flip that bad boy. It won't work on Doug's mic. Okay. Kristen, you come sit with me. There you go. So, yeah, go ahead.
I didn't know if we had to stand up.
You can stand up. Yeah, go ahead and stand up for just a moment. And why don't you guys go ahead and reveal by your shirts what it is that's getting ready to happen here at Movement Church.
Stripping for you?
You guys are looking for the pole, weren't you?
Movement Church is officially launching our second campus. Movement Church is launching Movement Recovery. We're partnering with Recovery Alive in North Carolina, and our goal is to reach people that need recovery in their life. You guys can sit real quick. Listen, when we talk about making a difference as a church, and you hear the word recovery, a lot of times our initial thought immediately goes to drugs and alcohol and different things like that. But I'm going to tell you something. What I love about this, and you're going to hear a little bit about it here in just a moment, is that we are going to focus on things like mental health. You know, we are coming out of a pandemic that has just destroyed people. All right, it's been tough. It's been crazy. And mental health is on the rise. We're here to deal with that. Anxiety, depression, PTSD. We're all going to come together into one spot, and we're going to worship Jesus. And we know that Jesus is the answer. Jesus is the solution. And that's what this is all about. And so, man, I'm so excited to be able to announce that today, because it's literally one of our biggest announcements that we've made since we planted this church. And so I'm so stinking excited about this. And so we're going to do kind of an interview style for a little bit to this morning. Pastor Doug and Bobbi are going to be the campus pastors for Recovery Live. They are going to be heading it on. Doug has a history in recovery, and we want to be everything that we can be for the church, for the community, everything that we can be for the people that God has called us to serve. And this starts here. And so we are so excited about this. Pastor Doug, real quick, man. Recovery Live, in a nutshell, what would you say about it? If you were just to say, hey, if you were to show up to Recovery Alive, what is it that they're going to experience?
Jesus Christ.
Thank you.
That's what you'll experience.
Yeah. And so there's church services, right? So we come together and we worship like crazy. You hear some testimonies of how God works and how God moves, and then we do something after that. And what do we do after that?
Yeah, after that, the church is going to be a church. It could be the only church some people ever go to. It's a recovery church. People will come together. They will worship. They'll praise God. They'll come to the altar, just like we do here. They'll have testimonies or lessons talking about recovery. Then they break into people groups where people, men and women, gender specific, will come together and talk about what they just heard. They'll talk about their recovery. The greatest thing about this is when you go into a group and it is your turn to talk, you say, hi, my name is Doug, and I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I'm in recovery for alcohol, anger, and abandonment. And they say, welcome, Doug. But first and foremost is the power of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a cool program to be able to be a part of. Now, Recovery Live, Bobbi, is a new program in itself. There's different programs out there that people hear about. AA, they hear about Celebrate Recovery, just some different things like that. Recovery Alive is a new thing in itself, isn't it? How new is Recovery Alive itself?
Actually, Recovery Alive officially started in December of this year when the book came out. That's the guide. It was based on a man named John Eklund started it. He started it during the pandemic because he was in Celebrate Recovery, and when the pandemic came, they stopped having groups in Celebrate Recovery, so people were left stranded. And Celebrate Recovery would not allow any kind of Zoom meetings, so people could continue their healing. And so people at John's church were struggling with that too. So they eventually developed it so that the service that can't go on in the church can go on online, so people can continue to feel the healing power of Christ.
Yeah, that's so good. So this is crazy. Let me tell you how God makes like these big circles happen, right? So we talk about exchange, engage, experience. And before we even launched this church, Kristen and I, we were driving in the car one day, and we were just having a conversation. This was before we even launched Movement Church. And we were still in pre-launch phases. And this is something that God even laid on her heart of saying, look, this is what we need to be. You want to share about that for a moment?
Well, I have a lot of family that has been through recovery or has backtracked in and out, and I know that I wanted to see, my family be able to be involved in something, either because they're in recovery and they want to share their recovery and help other people, or, they're struggling again, because that's kind of, when you have those kind of struggles, you kind of backtrack into them. I want to see them have a place where they feel understood and they feel comfortable to come in and encounter Jesus. Because sometimes, in a service like this, I'm not, it's hard to understand when we're on this side of addiction, what that looks like. But it's hard to walk in and feel like you have to be buttoned up and have it all together. And we all know in here, that's not what we expect. But when you're out there, that's what you believe is going on in here. And I was like, it would be so nice if we had a place for the people whose hearts are breaking and who are struggling with these addictions, and they feel like they can't bring themselves exactly how they are to Jesus. And I wanted to see them be able to encounter God, and maybe then God could make a breakthrough for them.
Yeah. I have a feeling we're going to hear a little bit more about that type of thing next Sunday, possibly, about identifying, I don't know. We'll see. Next Sunday is going to be an amazing Sunday. I can't wait. I can't tell you anymore, though. I get hit. Listen, so I told you just a little bit ago, right? Yeah, see, look, it's happening already. You would know if you were here at church like 3 months ago, and I told about her issues that she has and her... No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to. A couple people remember that one. But you remember just a little bit ago, I was telling you that when we originally planted this, one of the things that God planted on our heart was college age, young adults. And so I picked up the phone, and I made some phone calls. And I'm not going to go into where or anything like that because nothing's locked in yet. But I started making phone calls to some campuses, college campuses, and said, hey, talking to some different chaplains and stuff, hey, do you have recovery programs on your campus? No, we don't. Do you think that you guys would benefit from something like that? Like, would you ever partner with a church that would come in and just do a program on a Thursday night, on a Friday night, on a Saturday night? Yeah, absolutely. Two of the places were like, we have a place that you could do it right now if you wanted to. Like, well, we're not ready right now. We're not there yet. But my gosh, like here we thought, all right, what does it look like? How do we get college students from the University of Dayton, from Wright State, from Sinclair, all these different places that are around, how do we get them to come to Tip City, Ohio for a church? That's not what God was ever saying. He wasn't saying bring them to us. You need to go to them. Yeah. And again, we couldn't see this because we weren't thinking this way at all when we planted this church. In fact, funny story, and Doug will share this for a moment with you. When God really laid this on my heart and made it clear as day that this had to happen, I called Doug and said, "Hey, buddy." He said, "What?" I said, "Hey, you're not going to like what I have to tell you, but the Lord's been talking." And I told Doug, I said, "Hey, I think we're called to plant a recovery church, and I think you're called to be a huge part of that." And he said, "Yeah, you're right. I don't want to hear what you have to say." Share a little bit, man.
Recovery is difficult. Putting a recovery program together is difficult. I've done it. I was a state rep for Celebrate Recovery. I went all over the state putting ministries in prisons, and I just didn't want to go there. I really didn't. And when he said that, no, you need to find somebody because it ain't me. But interesting enough, and I'll take it a little step farther, John Eklund, I knew. He was, Bobbi mentioned him. He was a regional director for the East Coast for Celebrate Recovery, and the encouragement coach nationally. So I knew him. And I follow him on Facebook, and a couple of months ago, I'm looking at Facebook, and what John doesn't talk about Celebrate Recovery. What's going on here? What do you mean he wrote a book? And I started looking into it, and God laid on our hearts, we got to do this. This is perfect. This is exactly what we need. And one step farther, during Lent, every Wednesday we got together as a congregation, those that came, and we would pray. We prayed about all different sorts of things, locations, all sorts of stuff. One night, we prayed about ourselves, what we need for ourselves. And the group that was here that night broke down in tears. We're hurting. We're all hurting. We need the power of Jesus Christ to take that hurt away. And there's an avenue, there's a process in which we can go. And that's RA.
Yeah. It's such a cool program. But here's the thing. I just want to touch on this, and then we got one more thing that I want to have Doug share with you. But Kristen said this in what she was saying, that she hopes that she has family members or friends that could use recovery, but also those that have been through recovery, that have been through it, could also help and share it with other people. Don't fool yourself. Like, every single one of us could receive some type of recovery in some shape, form, or fashion. If you say you don't need it, I'm sorry, but you're not looking at yourself through the Jesus lens. You're not looking at yourself through the way of how you should. You need to look at yourself in a true, honest to God fashion. And how does this look? What does my life look like? What could I do? And you're like, man, I don't need recovery. Okay, great. But could somebody else benefit from your story? Could somebody else benefit from you? And I think that's the biggest question to ask, is that we go through trials, we go through tribulations, things happen in our lives, and we ask the question often, why, God, did I have to go through this? Sometimes it's for this exact purpose. Your testimony can change somebody's life forever. It did for me. I know testimonies have changed Kristen's life. Doug is going to share here in a minute how testimonies have changed his life. And God works and moves in huge ways. Listen, we're not planning to plant this church with all of you. By no means. We have Movement Church. Not everybody's going to be called to do recovery. It's tough. Not only is it tough, but it's also one of those things that you have to be really stinking honest with yourself at times. And you have to be willing to share a lot and to be honest with people. And a lot of vulnerability. And so we are going to be doing something on the 15th of May in the evening. Simply informational. Come out. You're going to experience a service of worship that night, and you'll hear some testimony that night. And then we're going to just talk about, what does this new church look like? And the coolest part about this is they're going to be meeting on Friday nights. You're like, why Friday nights? Well, that's when people that are in recovery need it the most, usually. And so Friday nights is the night that we are going to end up meeting. And there's just so many really cool things happening with this. And we don't want to share a whole lot more because we want to save that for our meeting coming up on the 15th. But the 15th, it's going to go from like 5 to 7. And I know that you guys would love to be a part of that, hear more. You don't have to jump on anything at that point, but just something to come out to hear, to see if you want to be a part of something like that. And so, you got anything else you want to say? No?
I have one thing.
Go ahead, Mike.
We talk about recovery here, and as Richie mentioned, a lot of people think of drugs and alcohol, but the vast majority of people are what they call an RA. They have worth wounds that affect their worth as a person. It can be infidelity. It can be depression. It can be losing a job. Things that hit your core that people aren't willing to express. And that's probably 90+% of the people. And so those are the ones, too, that when they hear recovery, they go, I'm not an addict. No, but you have problems that Jesus can fix. And the only way you can fix them is to be with like-minded people and share your stories and open up and let God heal you, because you can't do it on your own.
Yeah. Thank you. I love it. I love it. Hey, Doug, real quick, take like the next 3 minutes or so. Tell us, not personal testimony, but personal testimony as to why recovery is needed. Why do we need recovery? Why are we doing this?
Real quick, I was standing in a hallway to one of the churches I first served at, and there were 2 women standing there, and then one woman turned to the other and said, where's so-and-so? And the other woman said, oh, she's in recovery. The other woman said, I didn't know she had a drinking problem. The other woman said, she doesn't. She had a hip replacement. There's a stigma when we talk about recovery. There's a stigma. Everybody thinks it's alcohol and drugs. It's not. As a matter of fact, in recovery programs outside of AA, alcohol and drugs is at the bottom of the list. We're all hurting. Me, I was an alcoholic. I knew I had a problem, and I tried to solve it myself. I tried to solve it every morning that I woke up with a hangover. I'd say, wow, I'm not going to drink today. Yeah, well, that lasted about 4 or 5 minutes. You can't do it on your own. But then when I got into recovery, and I would go to these meetings, these groups, and a guy would say, I'm in recovery for this, and this. I thought to myself, oh my God, praise the Lord, I'm just an alcoholic. I don't have all those other things. I was sitting in a Celebrate Recovery in a big group, and a guy was giving his testimony, and he was struggling with anger and abandonment. And as he revealed his story, I said to myself, oh my gosh, that's me. Then I went to the room and said, hi, my name is Doug. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ who struggles with alcohol, anger, and abandonment. The core cause of my anger was the fact that I was abandoned as a child. And the anger, I thought that was just me. That's the way God made me, right? No, he didn't make me like that. And my symptom, to hide that, to make life more manageable, was the alcohol. But see, you get on a road of recovery, you will be surprised what God will reveal to you. But until you get started, you don't know what God has in store for you. And the first thing we have to do is admit we have a problem. Once we do that, God will begin to reveal to you and reveal to you and reveal to you more and more and more. But you got to get started. You got to get started. You know, Paul said in Romans 8, he said, I try to do the right thing, but I can't get it done. How come? Hasn't turned it over. You turn it over, and God will do the rest. Work the process. In AA, they say if you work it, what does that say? I forgot. It works if you work it. Thank you very much. See, there's somebody else in recovery. Yes. Yeah.
So if you could just be thinking about, do you want to be a part of this recovery program? Even if you're not sure if it's something that, you want to attend, or it's something that you want to come and you want to help out with, if you could just be obedient and come to the meeting. When is the meeting again?
15th.
The 15th. Be obedient. Show up. Hear us out. Let God talk to you about what you could do, how you could make a difference. Let's pray. Dear God, I know that there are so many times we come to you and we say, what difference can I make? I'm just one person. But we know when you met the woman at the well, you were one person, and she was one person. And you made a difference in her life by loving her, despite the things that she was struggling with. We can show up for people. We can let people show up for us. We can be Jesus to the woman at the well, or we can let Jesus come to us and give us living water. Let us be obedient to what you put on our hearts. Let us say yes when we're scared we're going to do it wrong. Let us choose you. Let us be who you are, because if we do not show up, if we are not the hands and feet of Jesus, of you, then who is going to show this world who you are? So say yes to this call. Help us to say yes to this call. Whether we need the help or we can be the help, Lord, give us the faith that we can show up and we are exactly enough, exactly the right person to show up for whatever it is that you're calling us to. Don't let us doubt what you've already said we are capable of, and you will help us through. I pray this in your name. Amen.
Hello, my name is Doug Doms. I'm the executive pastor here at the Movement Church. It is through your blessings that this ministry continues to reach out and touch lives that might not have been touched otherwise. If you want to continue to support our ministry, please go to Movementchurch.community. And please remember to tell your friends, go on social media, tell your friends at Movement 937. God bless you and have a wonderful day, and thanks again.